Really excited to be here today, talking some repair.org and right to repair issues with our locally Assemblyman, Jordan Cunningham. And Jordan, thanks so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name's Dan Revoir. I work with the iFixit Pro team here at iFixit, and we're heavily involved in repair.org type issues. And we're just really trying to do our best to help local community members, business owners, repair shop owners, DIYers learn about the political process and how to engage. And so I'm involved a little bit at the local level in local city government, but many of the issues that we're talking about are actually state level issues. And so we're really honored to be able to have your presence here, kind of bounce a couple of ideas off of you, questions about how to engage, what sort of advocacy activities work. And we really look forward to learning a little bit from you through this process.
Thanks, Dan.
So I'm not sure how much you know about Right to Repair, and I'll just kind of quickly share with you what the mission is and what the ideas are behind Right to Repair. So a couple of years ago, our organization helped team up with other industry leaders to found the Repair Association, repair.org. And the purpose of the Repair Association, is to really just fight for the right to repair. So a lot of electronic devices, heavy farm equipment, years ago, automobiles and basically other manufactured goods break down, need to be fixed, and independent repair shops, businesses, individuals doing that work were prohibited from performing repairs, or otherwise, their repair work resulted in bad consequences for the consumer. And so, right to repair legislation opened up really the marketplace for those independent repair technicians and professionals to compete with dealer or manufacturer-owned repair shops and businesses. And so really it was a great benefit, particularly to folks living in rural areas, individuals who operate these small businesses that are independent shops, right? In the automotive industry, it's an easy analogy to understand. And we wanted to see more competition in that realm. And so the automotive industry has shifted pretty heavily over in that direction. Legislation was passed, I believe, in Massachusetts in the late 2000s that really sort of reiterated that. And what the result of the legislation does is allows those independent shops to compete and open, particularly by being able to do the repair work without voiding warranties or otherwise breaking the machines, not literally, but through software and other things. And also, it would allow them to have access to things like schematics, software diagnostic tools, other things that the manufacturer has designed for those purposes, but they withhold them sort of to stifle that competition. And so the right to repair legislation is aimed around opening that up. We have legislation pending in a number of states around the union. I think there are 11 or 12 right now. Some bills have been tabled for future years and things already. But we're working on moving this forward, and there's often lately strong partnerships with the farming industry who's running into issues repairing tractors and keeping their machines running when they're actually maybe a vast distance from the nearest dealership, and they take it to their local tractor mechanic and they need to get that thing back up and running ASAP. So we're seeing a lot of interesting partnerships.
And their mechanic says, sorry, I'm not a certified manufacturer repair shop.
Yep.
You're going to have to go 200 miles or something
right,
like
yeah,
that.
with your combine, right? And so maybe that's not possible.
On a heavy lift.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see this cool overlap between electronic devices, where the marketplace is similarly controlled, and farm equipment, and we've definitely partnered heavily with farmers in various states.
That's an ag high-tech coalition. That's a good thing.
It's pretty amazing, yeah, and it's honestly, just a great pleasure to work side by side with folks that are feeding our country and dealing with these issues. It, I think, is easier to make that message come home for legislators than it is sometimes talking about for example, my personal repair business, where I'm fixing people's cell phone screens or putting a new battery in their phone. But again, we really believe that consumers have the right to change the tires on their vehicle, diagnose what sensor went wrong in their engine compartment, or likewise, understand which chip went bad on their board. And if there's someone local who has the skills to solder a new chip onto the board, we believe it ought to be their right to do that. After they bought the device, they own it, they should be able to fix it. And so that's kind of the context that we're thinking of.
The analogy to automotive repair, I think, is quite strong. I mean, most people assume you buy a car, you can take it to your local mechanic
Yeah.
and get it fixed or get the sparks spark plugs changed or whatever you need to do.
Right.
And it's kind of I would assume that you're probably on the right side of public opinion and saying, look, you bought a phone, you're paying it off over time in your contract or whatever, but it's an $800 device or $600 device.
Yeah.
If something goes bad and you need a screen replaced, you should probably be able to take it to somebody capable of doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we completely agree. And the automotive world works well as an analogy because you spend so much money on your car.
Yeah.
And we know there are parts in it that have a limited lifespan. Your battery, your belts, your tires. And if the manufacturer were to say something like, you're not allowed to replace your tires, or we put on a proprietary bolt that only we have the hardware for, then you get a flat out there on the road away from the dealership, you're out of luck, right? You can't change your tire. And that's kind of what's happening with battery replacements, for instance, and some of these other things. So that's what we're working on. But again, the purpose of being here today is to talk a little bit about advocacy. And so I want to hop into a couple of questions that we hear often from repair shop owners that are in the iFixit Pro network who are helping with the repair.org mission. And really, we're just trying to learn how accessible you are. Like I said, I'm a local elected official. You're an official at the state level in the state assembly. Most of our efforts are actually being targeted at state legislature. So you guys can be a little intimidating. And I think folks are scared to talk to us.
News to me.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because you're sitting there thinking, hey, I'm a normal guy. I've been talking to my neighbors for years. This is my life. It's no big deal. But for some reason, that flips upside down when you talk to folks out there in the world. So the first question we've got is, many people may not think their voice matters with their legislature. Is that true? How do they get in touch with you?
I don't think it's true at all. And, it's actually quite the reverse. When we're representing a district, a city, whatever it is, in my case, a region with 475,000 people in it, from San Miguel down to Lompoc. I mean, it's 100 miles north to south. I mean, a lot of people, big area. I'm trying to figure out especially on tricky issues, you want to make good policy, but you want to represent the people you're there to represent.
Yeah.
And that requires getting input from them, especially on stuff that's, you cover all sorts of different things. You have a background, and maybe you know a little bit about public safety or education because you're on a school board, or you own a small business. You know a little bit about the business climate. But when you're in the legislature, I mean, you're doing things in those fields, but you're also voting on legislation that, and healthcare for me is always a tricky one.
Sure.
Right. My mom's a nurse, but I'm an attorney and a school board member. I was a prosecutor. Business owner. I just haven't had any experience in healthcare.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's super complicated. I mean, it's not even if you're just saying, okay, I want to, for us in this area, access to care is a big deal.
Absolutely.
We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough specialists. We don't have enough nurses. Just getting people here in this high cost of living area, so that it's hard to get them here. And so I'm always looking at things from an access perspective. But in an area like healthcare, I'm really trying to figure out what is going to be best for the majority of my district. And the more people can communicate to my office, and we do it always. Facebook, you got to have Facebook, modern world. Facebook, social media, Twitter. We do, phone calls to the office are always good. The district office is probably the best place for that. The capital office is fine. People write letters. People email a lot. I mean, basically any way, whatever's easiest for folks. And hey, I'm concerned about Assembly Bill 732. Please vote no on 732. I mean, and it's actually incredibly helpful because we're all trying to figure out, all of us elected to represent an area, what do the majority of the people want, and is it good policy? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. You're not an expert in cell phone repair. You don't understand how the market
I definitely am not.
Yeah, right? So the shop owner actually is like a welcomed expert. I mean, as a legislator, it's your job to be asking for that person's feedback. And so really these folks out here who are trying to learn how to advocate should be empowered by
it helps us. Yeah, it helps us.
Yeah, and it's our job as legislators or as local electeds to listen. Like that's number one. What we want to do is reach out to people, and so I think that really is eye-opening for a lot of folks, understanding how desperate we are to hear from them. It's really the opposite of what people, I think, view from the outside, right? And really, really want them.
It's funny you mentioned people being intimidated. I'm fairly newly elected. I've only been in office for 6 months now. And I haven't held office before. So to me, people would come up from home, and anybody, by the way, that comes up to the Capitol when I'm there from the district, we make time to meet them. I make time to meet them and
Cool.
clear the schedule, because that's important to me. I'm there working for the people here, not for Sacramento.
Right.
I can always see Sacramento people later. They're not going anywhere.
Sure.
But one of my staffers up there told me, he commented one day about how nervous people were, like when they were waiting in the waiting room to go do a meeting. And I was like, why? I'm just a guy. I'm just I'm Jordan. Like I'm a dad. I'm a husband.
Right.
And he's like, no, a lot of times they're really, really nervous. And so, and I thought about it, and to me, it's analogous to people going into courtroom. For me as an attorney, that's something I'm very comfortable doing. I spend a lot of time professionally there. But my clients are incredibly nervous and intimidated by the structure and the formality of it and everything else. And but they shouldn't be. I mean, they really, especially when you're contacting your elected official, because we're there to work for you.
And you're just another local community member wanting to hear from them. So you mentioned like Facebook, email, some of the different mechanisms to reach out. And I think it's important for folks to just realize whatever means is easiest and most comfortable for them is probably the right means, right? They can give you a phone call. They can come to your office. If they request a meeting, they'll get it. Emails work. And, we talk a lot with folks. We've been running big campaigns trying to motivate folks to email in. And so there's definitely some concern about whether or not those types of coordinated efforts become spammy to your office. Do you guys experience that? What's your take on, let's say, a large barrage of messages from folks? What makes it work the best? Should they put in a personal note? Should they?
Yeah, I mean, of course, right? If there's a big contentious bill coming up and you get 190 emails that all are essentially form emails.
Sure.
Like that people are working
right.
They're ginning up the grassroots and all that, and that's fine. It doesn't mean you don't consider it or read it and take it into account. But I think the more personal contact, the better.
Okay. Good.
I mean, the most influential stuff is, the lady who writes in and tells you, hey, I'm struggling with this issue. I had a gap in my insurance coverage, something like that. Where,
right.
It's personal, and then we can connect up with them and try to help them solve that problem.
Yeah, stories I think are the most effective, and we've seen a couple of shop owners do a really good job articulating, like I mentioned earlier when we were chatting, how they found economic success by starting their own business, right? Like that really is a powerful message. And if their business is being stifled by a large corporation who doesn't want to have competition, that probably resonates, I think, with a lot of electeds who want to help the businesses in their community. So
that's right.
That's great.
And a lot of us are in this to help people like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're the same people, right?
If you're, Walmart or Costco, I mean, you're gonna be all right, right? I mean,
I'd imagine, yeah.
You can kind of absorb regulation. You can hire lawyers and lobbyists. It's really the small business owner that has to be represented, I think, and the effect on things we do in Sacramento needs to be carefully considered on small business.
Right. You represent the voice, amplify the voice that is otherwise kind of the quietest one, because they don't have the ability to amplify it on their own, unlike some of these larger businesses.
I mean, every corporation has a lobbyist.
Right.
Every single one.
Yeah. So that's a good segue, actually, to the next kind of area questions. One is, if I wanted to introduce a bill in my state, what should I do? Can an individual have an effect on like specific legislation?
Some of our best bill ideas are things that come from the district. People bring it in, they encountered this or that problem. I'm working on, I don't want to get too in the weeds technical, but I'm working on some changes on the family code that would allow people to represent juveniles a little bit easier. Right now, there's a big training requirement.
Okay.
And in rural areas like ours, there's no providers for the training, so we can't get attorneys to represent juveniles that need their own counsel in the system.
Wow. All right.
And that bill idea came to me from a friend who's a lawyer, who had encountered it personally. I mean, yes, you can affect it. Some of the best bill ideas come from the district, and the best way probably is to reach out to the point of contact for. In my case, my district director here in San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
And then we can, work it up the chain.
Yeah, so there's
or sideways to the Capitol.
Right.
Whatever.
There's layers of staff, some of which are in district and are immediately accessible to folks. And I think it's important to know if you're out there that you can look up, your local elected in your state legislature and figure out who the local person is who's in the district at the office there. Build a relationship with that person, and I think you'll find that maybe you feel even more at ease with them meeting, and then they'll introduce you to the elected official, and then it kind of grows from there. And that's really a good process.
And that's what they're for. Every legislator has sort of two offices, a capital office and a district office.
Okay.
In big districts, you have more than one district office. And the folks staffing the district office are there for constituent services.
Yeah.
And that is the reason they're there, to help people with problems with the state, to pass ideas along to their legislator. And when we're in session, the elected officials, we're sort of split between two different places because we're up in Sacramento quite a bit.
Right.
And so, the district level office is the best point of contact. And, I have very, very good staff. They're very attentive, and, we are as accessible and open as we possibly can be.
Excellent. Yeah.
Although we don't have office hours on the weekend. That's the one thing. But we still take calls.
Okay, good.
We still take emails.
Right on. Well, I think that's just huge for folks to understand just how easy it is to be able to get together and actually meet up. That one-on-one interaction is always the best. Like, it's comfortable for me to talk to you. We've met, prior to now, and I realize, oh, well, if I really did want to make a push in California, you're the first person I would go to. Once you kind of get at ease with somebody and realize they're just another person in your community, a dad, then you realize, oh, I've got things in common with this person, and there's a lot of ways that I can build.
I actually had a bill idea presented to me while I was watching my son's basketball game. one of the dads or grandpas, I think it was, from the hey, Jordan, I got this problem. And he said,
cool.
Like, yeah, I'm watching the game, but yeah, okay.
It's not the best. Yeah. I definitely.
Hey, but it all works.
Yeah, you're at the grocery store or something, and someone wants to talk about it. We talked a bit about kind of the larger businesses and how they have a position of strength. And so how do you feel personally when non-constituents like corporations or trade groups, sometimes grassroots lobbies, so repair.org is kind of in this picture a little bit, but is ultimately kind of built up by individuals in a district. So how do you feel like when a lobbyist comes and talks to you versus a group of grassroots people? How does that experience differ? And does it matter having a huge group of people come forward? Like, should we ensure that 50 small business owners from our district come and meet with you? Or does it help to have sort of one person be a spokesperson for the larger group?
So it can
it's
be
like a two-part question, I guess. How does it work with corporations, and what about the grassroots side?
It can be both. I think you need to sort of the best strategy for influencing. And there's sort of two parts to it. One is how do you want me to vote on certain bills that I'm voting on?
Right.
And then the other is, if I'm carrying legislation, how do you build the coalition and present the legislation in policy committee and all that sort of thing? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a two-part, a two-front battle, I guess. But as far as, look, every corporation has a lobbyist. We have a very large state government. I mean, relative to other states, it's a large state. I mean, California's basically the size of the nation. It's the sixth largest economy. Mm-hmm. We have more people in California than they do in Canada.
Right.
I mean, it's a big state government. So whenever it's just sort of part of the world that you're going to have the people that are being regulated, are going to have advocates for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's part of the First Amendment.
Right.
You have the right to petition for redress of grievances
Absolutely.
with the government.
Yeah.
So I don't view lobbying as some dirty bad thing. But I will say this, for me personally, the California Small Business Association, the NFIB, National Federation of Independent, the groups that sort of speak for the smaller, lesser heard voices, I guess, for lack of a better term, mm-hmm. for the small businesses, carry a lot of weight. I mean, that's my value system. I mean, that's just kind of, I come from a small business background. The Central Coast is a very small business oriented economy.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have Google and Facebook yet. I mean, maybe one day.
Who knows, yeah.
And so maybe my body's the next. Maybe I fix it.
Who knows? Yeah.
You guys will be corporate titans.
We want to be a small giant, right?
Yeah, there you go.
We don't necessarily want to go all the way down that path.
Well, hey, it's all good if it's adding jobs.
Yeah.
But so that's my kind of personal bias. But
okay.
I listen to, there is strength in numbers, I'd say that. And especially if you are trying to advocate for a bill or a policy change in a formal committee hearing, there is definitely strength in numbers, and there is strength in, if you paraded 50 small business owners up that all briefly told a personal story in support of the bill, it can really influence people's votes.
Great, cool. What kind of relationship do you have with local businesses? You've talked a little bit about your background, your perspective, but how does it work in district? Are you willing to go visit one of these repair shops if they want to maybe give you an actual experience of the story rather than just telling it to you? They want to show you around their shop. Is that something you're willing to do?
Oh, absolutely. In my campaign last cycle, I toured 50 local businesses in 50 working days.
Okay.
So that's just kind of part of what I was doing to get this job, and I don't intend on it stopping. My time's a little more crunched than it used to be.
Sure.
But I think touring businesses it's fun. First of all, you learn a ton about. Again, I know a lot about a few things, but I need to learn about all sorts of things.
Sure. Yeah.
And you hear the personal story. You get to meet employees. I mean, it's just a really fun thing to do. So happy to set it up anytime.
Good.
And in the fall, I should mention too. The legislature's out of session mid-September, and we don't go back till January. So in the fall, I'm home full time. So it makes it a lot easier to, during the session period, I'm here Fridays.
Right.
But so anytime in the fall, I plan on touring the classrooms and small businesses. Those are kind of my two, because you want input on what's going on the ground level in the education community. So there's a lot of value in that. I'm a big promoter, and one of my key legislative goals is promoting career technical education. So practical skills, trade, tends to be in the trades. It's ag, it's tech, it's welding and plumbing. It's what used to be called home ec in our day.
Right.
Graphic design, things like that. So one of my key goals as a legislator is actually trying to link up the business community, especially the small business community, and the education community a little bit better, so that we're giving kids more pathways. Not college is so expensive now, and it's becoming unaffordable in a lot of ways for just middle class families,
right?
Which is a shame, and we need to do something about that. But then we also have to, I think, recognize the reality that 50% of kids don't go to college, and they need a pathway, and they need to be turned on to maybe a whole different career option by learning a skill set.
Right.
And so we need to expose them to that. So any chance, long answer to a short question, any chance I have to go visit a repair shop, I'd love to do it. Don't expect me to know how to do it though. I'm not very good with my hands.
They might throw a screwdriver in your hand and have you test a few things out, but I just think that's music to our ears. We're trying really hard, both internally to provide those types of training opportunities. The whole iFixit model, as you know, is a free repair guide for everything written by everyone. So disseminating that information is definitely a core focus of ours. But all of our business customers, so all of these repair shops that are in this network, are all about teaching another really quite incredible, highly developed skill to an individual so that they can find a career, right? And doing these repairs, it is a very technical, difficult, specific area. And so folks developing that skill set is really exciting. And there's not a lot of formal training at this point, so we're kind of happy to hear that you're working on those types of issues.
I think it's really important. To a lot of us, hey, my magic box isn't working.
Right. Yeah. Well, and depending on where you grew up or your family or other things, a lot of us grew up fixing things around our house. You fix your bicycle is a good example, right? It's one of your first sort of coming of age experiences is hanging out with your mom or dad and learning how to change a tire on your bike or adjust the brakes or something. And that's really empowering for a lot of folks. But for some reason, we've kind of lost that in this era. In part it's because of the devices, and in part because it's
technological.
Yeah, but it's not as crazy as you think. And you're basically swapping out parts most of the time. It's just that the screws are really, really small. So that that's the difference. But we really want to help folks get through that. So we're coming up on time, but I really just wanted to say thanks again. We're very excited to hear about different ways that folks can get involved. We want to remind everybody out there that they can get in touch with you by the means that is easiest for them. They can email, they can use social media, right? They can tweet, they can make a Facebook post on your page or send a message to you guys through that. Those means work. Phone calls are great. Meeting in district with folks is really easy if you're more comfortable with the one-on-one. You guys are accessible, and that's important for all the repair.org members to understand. They can reach out. That's an easy thing to do. When it comes to legislation, if we know about specific bill language and things, we should share that with you. We should get your team looking at that stuff so they can understand what specific policy changes we're talking about, so you can understand how it fits into your world. And then ultimately, we need to share our stories and talk about our business success, talk about why right to repair is important to us. And if we get the chance, and we're lucky enough, when you're available on a Friday, or we can time it with the legislative cycle, when you're in district for a greater amount of time, show you firsthand what these shops look like. And I think anybody who, whether it's a farmer who's trying to share with you about their difficulties fixing their tractor, or a shop owner who's talking about how important it is to have the right to diagnose which chip has gone bad on your board, that we can work together, I think, to make some progress on this stuff. So we're really appreciative that you helped share those gems of information. This group of people need to know that type of info so that we can do a better job speaking up for our businesses and our livelihood. And I think that's just really, really important and exciting. Do you have any sort of final questions or parting words you'd like to share with our folks? I'm
excited about what you guys are doing. I'm glad to hear you're more engaged. I think those voices need to be heard in the system because, not to name any particular hardware manufacturer, but I have an iPhone. I think it's a quite great product. Mm-hmm. But their voices are getting heard. Absolutely. For sure. Sure. You don't have to worry about that. But you guys getting involved in the process is important and exciting. We're here to work for you, and we're here to solve problems for the district. And I think what is a unique this district, in addition to being the greatest place to live in America, in my biased,
I'm with you.
Humble opinion, it is also a neat district in that we really are a small business centered community. We really rely on that for our job growth, and we have a lot of exciting things going on in terms of agriculture, wine tourism, and tech. And with Cal Poly, and we have exponential growth potential here. So I'm excited to watch that happen and to try to play a positive role in helping it happen.
Great. Well, we really appreciate that perspective. I think that's probably shared by many of our repair shop owners in other districts around the United States, and we really hope that we're all as lucky to have someone like you serving nearby and somebody easy to talk to, and hopefully more and more of our folks are able to engage in the legislative process.
Well, thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.